Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Action for the Soul. This week's Perashat Matot-Masei, we have a double whammy here. It's going to be long. I'm not going to be speaking for so long, but the Perashat itself is a bit long. Since Passover, Israel and America have been unaligned as far as what we read in the Perashat itself. So, for example, like when I was in Israel about a month ago, visiting with family, I was reading the week ahead. So I was reading Perashat Korach, and the world around us was reading Perashat Shlach. So it was perfect because by the time I got back, I already had read Perashat Korach twice, so I was super prepared for that particular conversation. But this week we have the double Parasha itself, which means in Israel, this week they're doing Ma'asai, and we're doing Matot-Masei together, and finally we will be reunited with our holy brothers in the Promised Land. Now this is important because this parasha itself is very much connected to the Holy Land. In which way, you may be wondering? I'll tell you. Parasha itself begins with this idea of making nedarim, of making vows. V'daber Moshe el roshei ha'matot l'bnei Yisrael. God says, Moses says to the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, Zeh hadavar asher tzivah Hashem. This is the matter that God has commanded you. And the question that we should begin with is like this. Whenever we see a breakaway from a typical, standard verse in the Torah itself, it forces us to ask the question as to why. Why is the pasuk written this way? If you were going to write this pasuk, how would you start it? In the classical way. And God spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children. But that's not what happens here. The verse says, and Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes, to the Jewish people, saying, this is what God said. This is a breakaway from a traditional communicative process, and the question is why. And then it tells us, ki, ish, a man, ki, yidor, neder, a man who will make a vow, la Hashem, to God, o hishava, shevua, or a man who swears an oath, la oser, isur, al nafsho, he wants to make an oath that establishes a prohibition on himself, Lo yechal dvaro. He shall not desecrate his word. Why? Everything, whatever comes out of his mouth, he shall do. It talks about a woman making a promise and so on and so forth. And we've spoken about this in the past. Words matter. Okay, way more than you could possibly imagine. The way in which we speak matters. Expressing gratitude matters. As a matter of fact, I'm a very big believer in ensuring that my kids, I hope your kids as well, have just common decency. And common decency means always saying thank you, always saying please. I will not give my child a thing, nothing, if they don't say please. I will ignore them until I hear the please. Why? Because if they don't feel a sense of indebtedness and gratitude, as parents, we fail them. Because instead of teaching children to become open to other people and their feelings, instead, by not getting them to be more grateful about what they have, they become more narcissistic and entitled. And I don't want to have narcissistic or entitled children. If we do that, then we're just destroying the future. We're not building the future. And the question we are always asking ourselves is, what can I do to make the world a better, greater place? And there's no greater place than building the world than by raising happy, healthy kids. So I know, for example, there's some guy here in this group with us today, he's sitting back there, right? I know he has amazing children. And I know that as a result of his amazing children, the future is much brighter, right? We get a much better future because he worked really hard on raising kids with the values that are necessary to make tomorrow a better, greater place. And therefore, there's no greater way than instilling a value of gratitude, of responsibility in young people, because young people who feel this way are older people who feel that way. Young people who are careful about being conscientious and say thank you, please, are older people who are also conscientious, are older people who are thinking about how they can help the people around them, not the narcissistic kids who believe that everything is entitled, that they deserve everything. Okay, that's the difference. So the pasuk is saying like this. Number one, Moses changing the way he speaks over here. Why? Because he wants to go directly to the people. He goes directly to whom? Roshei Hamatot, the heads of the tribes. Why? Because their words matter most. Just like parents that are listening to this, mothers, fathers, okay, yes, what we say has a trickle-down effect. If we don't keep true to our word, then we're teaching kids that words don't matter. But I'm telling you, if you want to discipline your kids, there's nothing more profound than a kid knowing, oh my God, my dad said that. My dad's word, his bond are one. What he says is aligned with his actions. Nothing more profound than that. I say it, I mean it. Keep to it. Why specifically the Perashat Matot? Leaders are often more susceptible to manipulation than any other group of people. Why? Because everyone wants a piece of their power. So I'm going to influence them. I'm going to give them money. I'm going to support them, donations, so on and so forth. They need this extra warning from Moshe. My friends, your words, they're super, be careful. When you make a neder, when you're going to go ahead and speak about things, be careful how you say what you say, because it'll corrupt society. Trickle-down effect. If the leaders are broken, the people are broken. And the inverse, if the kids are broken, my friends, the future leaders are broken. But listen to what he says over here. He says, when a person does this, right? He says, Kol hayotze mipiv ya'aseh. Whatever comes out of his mouth, he shall do. Now, the mystics tell us that if a person is careful about his words, Kol hayotze mipiv ya'aseh. Not only should he do whatever he says, but if you're the kind of person that always does what he says, whenever he says anything, Kol ya'aseh, hayotze mipiv ya'aseh, whatever that person says, he will do. So, for example, I have a good friend of mine, a rabbi in Manzesdorf, it's a very religious community in Jerusalem, and he has a neighbor who never spoke a word of Lashon Hara in his life. The guy was super careful about speaking and saying things that were focused and appropriate, and didn't want to waste a word. Whatever this man said came true. He gave you a perasha, it came true. Whatever he said, it came true. Why? Because God used language to create the world. And therefore, language manifests reality. God spoke, Pereshit bara, Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. He used the word abracadabra, right? Those words comes from the words adaber avare ka'adaber. I will create as I speak. Words are the expression, the manifestation of reality. Words are vibrations. The world around you is vibrating, my friends. God's words vibrate into reality. We're in those vibrations. That's the world that you and I appreciate. It's true that the world is moving. It's animated. We don't feel it. Just like words are moving and animated. We don't feel it. We're not connected to it. But instead, right, we allow ourselves to create a reality that is tethered to something that is only tangible, when in fact the world around us is very untangible. There's nothing tangible about it. There's nothing tangible about words. But think about, we say sticks and stones can break my bones, but words, they can't hurt us. That's not true. Words can hurt. Words can destroy, or words can heal. We choose. So are we going to be the people that are careful about what we say, or are we going to be the people that don't really care and therefore live in a society where words don't matter? I believe words matter. When I say I love you, I want it to count. When I say trust me, I want it to be real. When I say I'll be there, my kid knows I'll be there at that time, on time, not late. Words matter. And the more careful you and I are with our words, the more profound the future looks like. And this is why he's speaking to the heads of the people. The heads of the people are there to go ahead and ensure that the future is bright. Then the Torah tells us about us taking revenge on those nations that got in the way of us getting to the land of Israel. But there's one thing in particular that I want to highlight over here before we conclude this week's talk. It's this very interesting dynamic between Moses and the tribes of Reuben and Gad. Okay, and this is what the Torah tells us. It says, Umikne Rav Hayad of Reuven. There was a lot of livestock that this tribe had. The tribe of Reuben, they were flowing with all kinds of livestock. They were doing really well. Shawarma was super cheap back then. Okay, well, they Gad, and the tribe of Gad, Atzum me'od, very, very vast also. Okay, v'yir'u et ha'eretz Ya'azov et ha'eretz Gilad, right? They saw the land of Ya'azer and the land of Gilad. V'nei makom makom mikneh. They saw it was a really good place for their livestock. Great. V'yavo b'nei Gad, and the children of Gad and Reuven come up to Moshe. They said, V'yomro Moshe, and the Elazar Kohen. He says, Atarot v'dibon v'yazor v'nimra v'cheshbon la'Allah. Right? These places are Tot, Dibon, Jazar, Nimra, Cheshbon, and Allah. Right? These the names of different cities. V'ha'aretz asher hika, and the land that God smote, Lifnei edat Yisrael, before the Jewish people, Eretz miknehi. It's a land for livestock. Ulodecha, and your servants, mikneh, we got livestock. So it makes sense. Like, this is Transjordan. We're not talking about in the land of Israel. These two tribes are standing outside of Jordan. Okay, they've already had a whole bunch of wars with the different local nations. They've won those wars, and now they're preparing to go into the land of Israel. And they're saying, "Listen, Moses, we got a lot of livestock. This land is perfect for livestock. Let us stay here." Vayomru, im matzanu chen be'enecha. If it found favor in your eyes, yutan et haaretz hazot la'avdecha. Give this land to your servants as a heritage. And we will not cross the Yarden, the Jordan River. Okay, so V'yomer Moshe lefnei God. This is a negotiation happening here. There's the art of negotiation. You want to understand how to negotiate, my friends? These verses teach you tremendous power of how to negotiate. Moses says to God and Reuben, Achichem, right? But about your brothers, Yavo, the Milchama, going to go out to war. Avatem, while you Teshu Po, you're going to settle out here. What is this? We're part of one tribe. How could you stay here and not come to the land of Israel? V'lama tiniuin et lev b'nei Yisrael. Why would your choice of not going, dissuade the hearts of the children of Israel? Ma'avor ha'aretz asher natan lahem Hashem. Right? By you choosing not to go in, you're creating a schism of our people. They're going to think, oh, why don't these two tribes want to go in? Must be it's too hard to conquer the land of Israel. Let's not bother trying. Finally, we got some real estate. Let's just settle here. Let's just end the war now. Why bother fighting? You're going to create panic amongst the Jewish people. Right? Your fathers did this, right? When I sent them to them, Mikadesh Barnea, Lerot Ta'aretz, talking about the first spies that he sends out to the land of Israel. They didn't want to go into the land of Israel. V'yalu al nachal eshkol v'yaru v'ad aretz. They see the land of Israel. V'yinu et lev b'nei Israel. And they dissuaded the hearts of the Jewish people. So Moses has got PTSD. He's got post-traumatic stress disorder over here, right? He's saying last time this happened, that it was a terrible, terrible plague and the Jewish people were punished. Tisha B'Av is a result of the spies, the sin of the spies. So the words, by the way, the words that they used were responsible for the 40 years of us being stuck in the desert. So Moses doesn't like it. And God was angry with us. He says, right? He says over here that they saw the men who came up from Egypt, right? These people between the ages of 20 and above, right? They're the ones who conquer the land, like I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But since they have not fulfilled their word after me, Bilti Kalev ben except for Caleb ben Yefuneh, Kenizi, that was the Caleb, who and Yoshua were the two individuals who were not part of the spies' report. They were the only ones that said positive. Yichar af Hashem, God's anger flared amongst the Jewish people, and He made them wander in the Midbar Arba'im Shana, 40 years because of this. So Reuben, God, nice try over here. I know what you want to do, but I'm terrified. I think this is a really bad idea. You got to come with us. Okay. And they came back to him. I skipped a couple of verses over here because he keeps going through this whole thing with the fathers. They came back to him. They approached him and they said, we're going to go ahead and create gedorot, pens for our sheep. And we're going to build houses here of livestock for our cities and for our small children. Okay? And the sages point out over here, look at the order. You're telling me that you don't want to go into the land of Israel because you want to build a business for yourself and then you're going to build something for your children? Dude, you got your priorities all wrong. First build houses for your kids and then worry about your livestock. Can you imagine? Like, I gotta take care of my business and not my family. Business comes first. How could you write that? How could you say that? V'anachnu nechlatz, and we will go ahead and take ourselves, right? Chushim lifnei b'nei Yisrael ad asher im yiviunum el hamakom yashat tapenu ba'arid mitzvah. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and fight. We're going to be at the front lines. We're going to fight all the wars, and then we're going to come back into our land. We're not going to settle until we conquer the land of Israel. Okay? That's what he says to them. This sounds very nice. V'yomer lehem Moshe. Moses says back to them, Im ta'asuna tavar hazeh, if you do this, Im techletzu lifnei Hashem l'melchama, you actually go out and arm yourselves, go to war for God. Va'avor lachem kol chalutz et yarden lifnei Hashem, and you cross over with every armed man across the Jordan before God. Ad harisho et ovav mipanav, until you're able to vanquish your enemies before him. Nikbasha aretz lifnei Hashem, and you conquer the land. Then you have satisfied the command and you're okay. Then you can inherit this land. Very nice. Okay. If you don't do this, you have sinned before God, and the consequence of your sin will ensure that you you first build cities for your children, and then for your sheep. This is what you got to do. So, God said, "Not a problem. We'll do this." So, what's going on over here? So, a couple of things. One is that how could these tribes, who are witnessed all these miracles in the land of Israel, in Egypt, and in the desert for so long, and not want to go into the land of Israel? Was it really just about money, right? And then they're really concerned about their flock, their livestock. Like that's the motivation. That's what you're thinking. And then it gets interesting. It goes on. After Moses acquiesces, right, and it's definitely worth going through all this. Is very long. I'm not going to go through all of it at the end. God says like this: "V'yiten lahem Moshe levnei Gad uvnei Reuven ulechetzi l'shevet Menashe ben Yosef et mamlechet Sichon melech Hamori vet melchet Og melech Bashan." God gave to Moses. Moses said he gave to God and to the tribe of Reuben and half of the Shevet, the tribe of Menashe, to these lands that are Transjordan. Why is Manasseh put in here? They didn't want to go. So let's answer some of these questions. Number one, when the Jews fought these particular people, the lands, Transjordan people, they all went out to war. The cities were completely empty. There was nothing to build in the cities because they wiped out the armies swiftly. So from their perspective, God and Reuben, the house is already built. I don't need to build a house for my kids. I got to build livestock. That's really what it was. They were concerned about their children. But Moses' retort wasn't about raising their kids. It's about my friends. It wasn't about money. It was more about, even it's true you're going to get these beautiful houses that are already finished. A whole city of finished homes for you. Beautiful, right? But the houses were filled with avodah zarah. The houses were filled with idolatry. And those actions, just like words, impact a reality, a space. So those things have to be cleansed. You have to be thinking about creating an example for your children first. Then you'll worry about everything else. Your parnasa will come later. Children come first. Parnasa comes second. You need a parnasa? Have a parnasa. You need to make money? Make a lot of money. Do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, know that the environment you create in your home is where the sanctity of that home comes from. That sanctity has the power of impacting the future as well. So why did he include Shevet Menashe there? He includes Shevet Menashe because Shevet Menashe was tasked with carrying out the bones of Joseph. They were the ones that were super in love with conquering the land of Israel. They loved it. So as a counterweight, Moses takes half of the tribe of Menashe, leaves them Transjordan to ensure one thing and one thing alone, that the Jewish people remain united. He wanted Gad and Reuben to go out into war with them so they would be part of the story of the conquering of the land. They felt they were part of this national, massive movement, not just a breakaway movement. He wanted there to be unity amongst the people. And he kept Menashe with them, half of Menashe with them, because They loved the land of Israel more than anyone else. And they would do anything and everything to return to the land of Israel. So we talk about negotiating, we talk about getting what we want and ensuring that the people that are being negotiated with end up succeeding with what they actually want. This is Moses' greatness. And he asks us, he's begging us, my friends, what are our priorities? Are we spending time learning? Are we growing? Are we thinking? Are we asking? Are we building? Is it only about money? Is every action about, every effort of my day just about making more and more money so I can buy more and more toys and go on longer and longer vacations? Or am I prioritizing myself that I realize that the money, the job, the acquisition of things are all there to help elevate the world around me into something much more profound? This is what this parasha is about. Matot are about our ma'asai. The tribes that we have are about our travels, right? The tribe we build is not stagnant. It's transitory. It's moving. But what we build on the inside has a profound impact on the outside. How do we determine what's happening on the inside? What are your priorities? Wishing you all a week of clarity. May you spend some time clarifying your priorities. May God give you the clarity to recognize that the priorities are more important than any of the chitzoni, the external things. And most importantly, that you use your priorities to make yourselves and the world around us a better and greater place. Shabbat shalom, everyone, and thank you so much for listening.